The other thing, many people, even Christians, are dabbling in the New Age and don't realize it. And the most common areas are in things like meditation of the emptying kind, where you're emptying, zoning out, and you become an empty vessel. Different to Christian infilling on the word, meditating on the word. Yoga, people don't realize it's a Hindu practice. And mindfulness, many aspects of mindfulness come from Hinduism and Buddhism, and many people, I've seen it offered through churches. Oh, it's a Christian mindfulness teacher. Okay, I have a problem with using the word mindfulness in a Christian context, because it then seems to validate mindfulness, which means people think they can go to mindfulness practices anywhere. And I don't like that, because people aren't discerning enough to pick up the subtle differences of when you're being guided to have an out-of-body experience, or you're calling on the energy of the universe, and things that they don't recognize as worship of false gods and opening yourself up to opening a demonic door. People just aren't discerning enough in that way, I find. So they're better not to go there. Having a Buddha in the garden as a decoration, these sort of things, it's annoying. The most controversial things I share, when I share these on Facebook, I don't do it very often, but these things cause the biggest stir. And they cause the biggest stir because they're things that I know, I can name them, I won't name them, but I could name them, that many pastors do, that many pastors' children do, or teach, or practice, or offer themselves. Or they've got key members in their church, or key tithers or whatever. I've done this before. I've been shut down when I used to do my little spiel about things, or my book, Searching for Healing. There would be certain places we'd go, which we weren't then later on invited back to. My book, Searching for Healing from the New Age Jesus, before I was saved, and I went through a crisis, I was looking for healing. I took a journey through the New Age. I can't say I was planted in anything, except I had done yoga for many years. And when I talked about some things that people often involve themselves in without realizing there's potentially demonic open doors are there, shut down. Okay, martial arts. For the same reason as yoga, the background there, they often do the centering, pulling on energy, drawing. Come on now. Karate chopping through a brick or wood, that's not a human feat. There's something spiritual involved in that. But again, there are other pastors I can name who have been involved in that past, and they became Christians, and then they had a revelation and renounced it, and then spirits came off them too. So martial arts, acupuncture is being offered everywhere, and it's not because it's scientifically validated. It is not. It's because fields like physiotherapy, which in itself is okay, but say no to acupuncture, they're wanting to reduce the toll on the practitioner rather than putting their elbow or pressing their thumb or exerting force. They'd rather stick a needle in you and go and check their emails. But there is quite a big difference between putting a needle on a tight tendon rather than pressing it. Like a needle goes through the tendon, whereas pressing it actually stretches it. But acupuncture and that whole is based on a spiritual concept of meridians. So in ancient Chinese medicine, but also in the philosophy of Confucianism and Buddhism and so on, this idea of life force or chi or energy, that's their idea of God, energy or presence, chi or life force. And so when it comes to ancient traditional Chinese medicine, they believe there's a blockage in the flow of the chi of these meridians. And one person believes there are 400 meridians, another believes there are 800. They don't exist. It's a spiritual concept. And so they put needles, or they use pressure, or they use a laser to try and undo the blockage so your body will naturally heal itself through acupuncture. But when you submit to acupuncture, you're submitting to this idea of chi or life force, which is a false spirit behind that. It's a demonic, it's a false religious belief. And so the number of people that I've led through prayers to repent or renounce of acupuncture, and they get a healing or a rush of circulation. For example, many people who've got severe diabetes might try a lot of these things, trying to get more circulation or free things up. but it doesn't help, or it would be short-lived or temporary. And the evidence that it doesn't heal is, and people who tell me, oh, I've been going to my acupuncturist for years, I'm thinking, you just said the proof that it doesn't work. If it healed, you wouldn't be going there for years. Because the devil can counterfeit healing. You have your needles in, you're better for an hour, 2 hours, 1 day, 2 days. That little spirit just goes quiet. It's probably a spirit of infirmity that's moved in. Goes quiet, so you believe that you've had some relief. Lo and behold, it's back again. The next week, a fortnight later, you're back, paying out your $100, doing it all again, and that goes on for years and years. Okay, the most controversial thing, and I'm not saying it's all bad, but there's so many subtle things in it. You would have to read up a lot about it to have the discernment to know, is chiropractic. People they just go off their heads at me when I mention problems with chiropractic. Does everyone know that chiropractic was started by a Canadian, Daniel Palmer, in the late 1800s? He was a spiritualist. He did magnet healing. He believed he was at a spiritualist conference, and there's all different stories about he was joking with someone who had a cough, and he slapped them, like in joking, he slapped the man on the back, and then the man's cough or something went, and so then he put in his head, oh, there's some connection between that man's cough and his spine. And then he started developing this idea, and then he said that he got the word chiropractic from a dead doctor. So the doctor was dead when this guy was alive at this spiritualist conference. So they must have been channeling different people, and so channeling this dead doctor, and he believed that the word chiropractic was dropped, and then he developed this whole concept of every sickness comes from a misalignment in the spine and a blockage in the nervous system, which anatomically and medically is not true. But there are still many people, especially American-based chiropractors or people who follow the Palmer method, especially who believe this. Many other practices that chiropractors learn is something called muscle testing or body kinesiology. Many people in the New Age play these sort of games. You'd be blind. I did this. They blindfold you. You put out your arm, and in your other hand they'll put a cup, and there'll either be cleaning fluid in the cup or water. And then they'll say, all right, resist my force. And with your other hand, they're trying to push your hand out, and you're trying to resist. And your body, they say, your body instinctively knows the answer to every question of the universe. So they argue that if your hand stays strong, it knows instinctively that if it consumed what was in the cup and it was bad, i.e. the cleaning fluid, your hand would be weak and it goes down. But if it's water and would be strong, your hand stays strong. It actually works, and there is absolutely no explanation for how it could work apart from there being a spiritual thing involved. If you were to go to a chiropractor, and if you were to read my book, there's a whole story. Before I was saved, I was involved in, I tried something called body electronics, where they believe that the body could heal itself of anything. And God has put a degree of healing. You cut yourself, you break your bone. I believe with right nutrition and various things, the body can heal itself and stay strong and healthy for a long time. True. But they believed that body electronics was started by a chiropractor, American chiropractor. So they wanted you to do chiropractic adjustments, and I had no pain. I was much younger then, but I have no pain now. I had no pain in my neck, back, anywhere, but they wanted you to keep your nervous system open. And so you go along. I actually started getting pain after having these unnecessary adjustments. And I said, why do I feel pain now in my neck when I never had any before? Oh, that's because your nervous system is coming alive and you're more in tune with your body. And I said, I preferred it before when it wasn't in tune and I didn't feel this. It was throwing me out. And if you wanted more detail on this, that ABC program, Catalyst, that science program, about 10 years ago, they actually did a documentary. You can still get it online. And after a baby had an adjustment, because there's all these chiropractors who specialize in adjusting babies and children, the baby's neck was broken during an adjustment. And so there was an investigation into chiropractic. Another issue with chiropractic is they love to use the title doctor. It is a courtesy title. I do not know why they're allowed to take it on. Chiropractic is considered an alternative complementary therapy. It is not mainstream. Physiotherapy is mainstream, so go to a physiotherapist, I would say, than a chiropractor. Now, it's true, there are chiropractors who operate like physios, but you don't know if they've gone to, when you go to uni, there are lots of different modules. You've got visiting speakers from the US all over the world. They might have gone to do a little extra module on the side and learned an extra technique from a visiting American person. You don't know what bag of tricks that particular chiropractor is going to employ. So yes, you could strike it lucky and there's one that operates like a physio. But all the ones that I went to in that time of trying out that body electronics, all of them employed body kinesiology or that muscle testing. They use, what's that click pen, that adjuster? It starts with A. It's, like a big pen, click pen. They use something that's pretty much no stronger than a flick. And they test the strength, like if you said, I've got sciatic pain, okay, resist my force. And they'd show, so you're weak on that side because I can push your leg down, but you hold your strength on the right. And then they use this, like a big pen, and they pretty much just go, like, really? Is that going to adjust a bone, really? And then lo and behold, now resist my force. And now you're stronger again. So it's weird, it's hanky-panky stuff, it's peculiar. And it's very subtle to pick this up. But people unfriend me, and whenever I do a post and I mention chiropractic, and I say, not everything, but many things, but aside from all that, the beginning of chiropractic is a huge question mark and problem with it's being started by a spiritualist. Again, the name, how important names are in the Bible, symbols are. The name chiropractic, how it came to be, coming from the spiritualist, that is the biggest problem, and then it goes on from there. Okay, so I always ask that. Reflexology, because you see a whole lot of Chinese shops that do the massage on the hands and the feet, and just massage generally at shopping malls these days. So you have to be careful of that, because they use chi and life force, and they use these maps like the acupuncture meridians over the hands, and they believe that if there's there are connections in the hands and feet that are linked to every organ, so that if there's a calcification there, it might be interfering with your kidney or your liver. It's anatomically, scientifically not true. There's a crossover in our nervous system, which is why when people have a stroke on that side, it affects the right side. But in this whole acupuncture business, they believe that if the problem's there, it's going to affect that side, which isn't how the nerve, it doesn't work. It's scientifically, medically, anatomically not kosher. And so very big problem with all of this. And so you've got to be careful going to these places, because there can be a transfer of the spirits or demonic things from the people you're going to. You're submitting to them. And if, let's say they're rubbing your foot and there's a tender spot, and they say, is that sore there? Yes. You might have an inflamed liver. And suddenly they're spoken like a curse over you. And you start worrying about your liver. But it might be that you just wore uncomfortable shoes the day before, or you stood on a rock or a bit of Lego or something. And so you're opening yourself up, but also there can be a transfer, because they're often channeling energy and doing things you can't see or feel or that you're aware of. And they do things like electromagnetic balancing and stuff. Like they put their hands in places. So for example, if you don't go to a yoga class, but for example, in a yoga class, when I did go years before I was saved, what goes on is at the end they do something called relaxation or guided meditation. So you've done all your poses. Every pose in yoga gives honor to a Hindu god. There are millions, thousands of Hindu gods. You know, standing in different poses. You're giving honor, you're channeling the energy of the universe. In Hinduism, yoga isn't used for exercise and stretching. It's used for the infilling of pranic energy, which is the idea of God essence or God presence. And so it's all about the breath and the infilling of that energy. At the end of a yoga session, when they're guiding you to have out-of-body experiences, to focus on a light above your head, or they believe in chakras, these 7 light centers throughout the body, and you spin the chakras and so on. They don't exist. But spirits can come and make a home there, and you open a door to them. If you're sitting there and there are Buddhas and Shivas statues all around you, And if your yoga teacher's being off at ashrams, which many of them do go each year to get their infilling, they get their crown chakra open, they get things channeled into them, they get deeper and deeper demonized. And then they come along and they do things like they touch your head. You're randomly sitting there with your eyes closed, and they're randomly touching your head, or they're randomly pressing you in the middle there, your third eye is what they're doing. They're randomly touching parts of your body. They're trying to channel things into you. And you would have no idea what they're doing. And so you're a sitting duck when it comes to yoga. And all you have to have seen, and John and I have seen this many times, praying for someone who went deep in yoga, went to the ashrams, been studying it for years. And when you pray for them, they go into lotus position. They cannot help. We've seen this a number of times. They cannot help but do this. There's a spirit behind it. They cannot control going into this sort of posture. There's a demon behind it. And people have trouble getting free of it because they've welcomed it over and over. They've gone so deep. So they really need to renounce that and get a revelation. And they need to be fighting against that thing. Because they would have all sorts of statues. They'd all have all sorts of things from India in their house and other places. But these are fairly common things that people dabble in without realizing, just the open door, how subtle it is. And they think we sound excessive and paranoid. But no, as a Christian, just when you see people who are so bound and their lives are affected, they're just going downhill every time you see them, you just want to walk clean. You don't want to dabble or walk with one foot in the world and one foot with Jesus, because the world always pulls you in. And so, people who are very resistant to this, family members, or they themselves practice it, or there's church members, or they get a bit of a minor income. And I could make a list of people who've fallen away from the church when I've been there, or the pastor has confronted them because they do a little bit of reflexology on the side.